welcome everybody to day 2 of the Academy Boot Camp. Got a nice crowd here this morning early. And today what we're going to do is we're going to start off not with System 7, but we're going to start off with having Denny Lee, one of our members, talk a little bit about what he did before he joined the Academy, what life was like before the Academy, and what it was like joining the Academy, implementing system, how it's impacted the practice and his life, and give him an opportunity to do that. And you'll, I think, have some opportunity to maybe ask questions as well. And so that's where we'll start. Denny's been a member for 2 years. He joined in the spring of 2018. That was our event in Las Vegas, which happened to be when we celebrated the Academy's 25th anniversary. And so with that, Denny, we already heard Big Red, which all of us sports fans know that means Nebraska football and probably all sports. So from Nebraska, Denny, why don't you take it over?
All right, Sandy, good morning, Robert, and the entire staff and all of the VIP people that are joining the Academy for this event. You know, I sat where you did back, as Sandy said, in the spring of 2018. And at that point, I'm probably what might be classified best as a non-traditional member of the Academy. And here's why. I'm looking at all the video boxes of all of you. And I got admitted to practice law in 1980, back in the old century. And we just got electricity in Nebraska about 10 years before that. But I had been focusing my practice all throughout those years in litigation. Our office represented a lot of insurance companies doing subrogation work for them. And I really enjoyed litigation. Matter of fact, if somebody were to ask me, you know, what did I want to do when I got out of law school? And I wanted to be in the courtroom. And after I did that for about 35 years, I had also dabbled in estate planning and business planning. But I got to the point where there was really nothing new in litigation. For me, it became more of a routine. I wasn't as inspired as I was early in my practice with litigation. And so I began to look, and my search of something else, and that proverbial something else, began for me probably in about 2016 or 17. And I knew then during the course of my search that I really wanted to focus on estate planning and business planning as well. And so I wanted to phase out of my litigation practice. And so that was my background of when I got off the plane in Las Vegas at the boot camp that you are now virtually at. That was really what I was looking for, is something to challenge me, something to give me fulfillment, and something that I just really wanted to continue to do for the rest of my career. And I'll admit, the first day after the boot camp, and maybe you experienced this as well, I was overwhelmed with the amount of information and just everything that was thrown at me in day one. But that overwhelming feeling also inspired me to really think about where I wanted my practice to go. And I knew I didn't want to stay in litigation. I also knew that I didn't want to retire. And so for me, I really became almost instantaneously attracted to the Academy methods. And I decided after the boot camp in 2018, I decided that I want to join the Academy. And I remember, you're going to see this later in I think tomorrow, where there is a member go round. And at that point, of course, we were live. Every member got I think 2 or 3 minutes to introduce themselves and where are they from. And there was one member, and to this day, I don't know who it was, but there was one member who said something that was extremely compelling to me. And the statement that he made was, and he was speaking to those of us that were in the VIP class in the spring of 2018. And he said this, he said that if you're intrigued enough about estate planning to be here, then I can tell you from my experience, it's the best decision you will ever make, and just write the check. And those three words, write the check. Well, that sounds really convenient, just write the check. However, I thought about it, and all the people that I had the opportunity, when I say people, I'm talking members of the academy and the staff. Um, I left Las Vegas so incredibly impressed. And I came back to my office probably as inspired and excited as I had been in 25 years. And so long story short, I did join the academy, and I joined the academy in May of 2018. And over the course of that time, I did two things. I phased out of my litigation practice, and I phased in the academy systems. Now, I don't want to gloss over that because I don't know how many other members are going to be speaking to you during the course of your VIP program, but I can tell you one simple thing if you decide to join the academy, and that is this: don't reinvent the wheel. The academy systems and the academy processes really work. And if you sidestep from those, then it's not going to be successful. And what I found out very quickly is that there are a lot of things. Now, I should say I had a little bit of a background of estate planning. So let me define a little bit before I joined the academy. I did some wills. I did some powers of attorney. I had some wills that had testamentary trusts. And I did some revocable trust planning. And of course, I did probates. But none of that was on a regular basis. And that's really what challenged me in terms of practicing law in the later portions of my career. So when I joined the academy, I was assigned Lillian as my PBC, and you'll hear more about that acronym during the course of the program. And Lillian, how can I best describe Lillian? She is a good friend. She kicks my butt when I need it, and she listens to me and guides me. And I can't think of anybody better to help me implement my estate planning and the academy systems into our practice. So what has that meant for us as a law office? Now, I was a sole practitioner, and the operative term there being was. There was a period of time for probably about maybe 6 to 7 months when we were so focused on implementing the academy systems, the strategies. And when I say systems and strategies, it truly is a turnkey process. And it took us about 6 months to do that. And we did. And so during that 6-month period, I phased out my litigation practice. And I can't tell you honestly that I phased it out 100%. I'm probably down to maybe 10% of my litigation clients that I had before I joined the academy. But when we started implementing, and we had our very first seminar for estate planning in October of 2018. And this was new territory for me. And I didn't know if there was going to be anybody who was going to show up or if I was going to have, capacity crowds. Well, much to my pleasant surprise, we had a really good opportunity with very many great people at our first seminar in October of 2018, to the point that it blew me away. I never anticipated that I'd have that type of response. So we built on that. And we had live seminars then in January and about every 2.5 to 3 months thereafter throughout 2019. So how has this affected our office? Extremely positively. I'm blessed with an incredible staff. We don't call it the Lee Law Office, we call it the Lee Law family here, because I've had people that have been with me for decades and we've seen our families grow together. And I want those people, that's my legacy. You're going to hear the word legacy throughout this portion. And the legacy that I want to leave to my office family is that when I decide to retire, or if I get hit by a bus, I want this office to continue. I didn't think it could do that with litigation. Plus, I was the only attorney at the time. With estate planning, I know it can continue. In 2019, I had, with the focus on estate planning, I had the best year financially that I ever had in 37 years of practicing law. And it got to the point where I had frankly too much work. And so I ended up hiring an associate attorney in early part of this year. And what did he first do? He got trained on the academy systems. So I like to refer to myself as I'm a reformed litigator late in my career. The litigation side, I enjoyed. I mean, jury trials, bench trials, it was great. I enjoyed being in the courtroom, but I wasn't near as challenged as I have been in the last year and a half. One of the side benefits of being with the academy is that through the seminars and the marketing that we do, I've had the opportunity to meet incredible clients and that I stay in touch with. We have our annual meetings with them. We've now cycled around, so we've had second annual meetings with people. And the other thing with the academy, and I did my due diligence in terms of before I even went to boot camp, I checked out other organizations and associations that are similar to the academy, and I really educated myself on them. But I can tell you that there isn't any system out there, there isn't any group of people like the academy staff out there. Nothing compares, in my view, to the academy. And I think you'll see that because so many members like me, members that have been with Sandy and Robert since the start, they continue to return every year. And there's a reason for that. And the reason for is Sandy and Robert, but like all of us who succeed, it's not really us, and I'm not casting dispersions to Sandy and Robert. It's the staff, it's Jennifer, and it's everybody on the staff that hopefully you'll have an opportunity to interact with during the course of the boot camp and the course of the academy. So that in brief is kind of my story. I have one regret. I'll share this with you. My one regret, that I didn't join the academy 20 years ago. If I would have joined the academy 20 years ago, I would be at places now, both personally and financially, that I can't even begin to imagine. But at least I'm glad the light bulb went on and I joined the academy late in my career, because truly I get up every day, I can't wait to get to work. And for that, I'm very blessed. I hope you enjoy your VIP and the academy experience with the summit. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to talk to any of you. Sandy and Robert and Jennifer and Lillian have my cell phone. Heck, I'll give it to you now if you want. You can call me about anything, anytime, ask me any questions about my experience. And my cell number is 402-658-8130, and I'm in Omaha. Sandy, Robert, anything else you want me to touch on?
You know, there's one other, and first of all, that was just an absolute fabulous summary of the experience that you've had with the academy, and we certainly appreciate all the words. I want to highlight and reiterate what you said. It's the team, and we've been focused on the team and how important the team really is for every business. Now, the other thing I'd ask you to just mention briefly is, and it's kind of a little bit of a personal thing with your own schedule. I know that you used to spend a lot of time working on weekends. And tell us a little bit about, are you still putting in those 2 days every weekend working away, or has that changed at all?
You know, Sandy, I'm glad you reminded me of that. When I was doing litigation, the joke in our house, and Kathy and I have been married for a long time and we have 4 kids, but the joke in my house was that she absolutely totally insisted that I take 2 days a year off, Thanksgiving and Christmas. Can you imagine that? Taking those 2 days off. And the reason that's kind of a joke is that, as Sandy said, I'm answering discovery, I'm issuing discovery, I'm preparing for a jury trial or a bench trial and doing witness preparations. And it wasn't 8 to 5. A lot of times I'd go home and I'd fire up my computer at home and I'd be in my office desktop, and you know, it wasn't unusual for me to go to 11:30 or midnight and get up again the next morning and do it again. Weekends, I can't think of a weekend when I was doing litigation that I didn't work. I'm on vacation. I'm still bringing my laptop. All right, here's how my life has changed. And this goes back to the academy systems and processes. Once we got everything implemented, and I wish my wife was here because she could echo this, I can't tell you the last weekend that I worked. I go home at night. I'm the captain of the ship, so I'm the last one to leave here. So I get home about 6 o'clock at night, and I'll read now. We'll go outside in the patio. My twins have got booted out of the baseball playoffs, so I don't have anybody to watch in Major League Baseball. That intrigues me, but I'm not watching baseball games. And the difference is the systems with the academy allow me and our staff to implement those so that I'm not working 60 hours a week. And maybe some of you are. If you are, I understand. I've been there. But with the academy processes, and as I've passed on litigation and referred those cases out to other firms and attorneys, Jake and I, the other attorney in our office, we're able to do the things and have our staff help us along the way that I'm not working nights, I'm not working weekends. And I can't tell you how good that feels.
Oh, thanks for sharing that, Denny. I did want to mention that because I know that has been a big change for you. And we love reading about it, and we love hearing about it, and the time you spend, because obviously we know you have the cabin as well that you spend a lot of time at, although I know you just closed it up for the winter.
Yep.
So again, thank you so much for all the kind words and for offering your cell number and conversation to anyone who wants to talk to you or ask questions. So Denny's certainly available to do that. Thanks
Happy
again.
to do it. Anybody call anytime. Thanks,
All right.
Sandy.
Thank you so much, Denny. That was terrific.
Okay, so we are now going to move into System 7. So I will briefly turn it over to Sarah to pull up System 7, see if I can take control of the slides.
Yep.
Now,
I
while
am
we're-
sharing my screen now.
Okay. I will click on it, and hopefully I'm in control of it. And I am. So, and one other item I do want to point out, Denny made reference to introductions that happen at the academy. When we start the official, this is the boot camp. The summit will start tomorrow. I was going to say it starts tomorrow at 1 o'clock, but that's not accurate. That's the way we normally do it when we're live. It'll be starting again tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Pacific time. But what I wanted to mention was that when we are live, one of the things we do early in the boot camp, or excuse me, in the event, is we have introductions where every member takes the mic, has an opportunity to introduce themselves, somewhat similar to what we did yesterday here at the boot camp. Now, because we've gone online, we have eliminated that component of it, which is one of our favorites. The reason we eliminated it is because doing it online, first of all, it does take a lot of time. It can take at least an hour and sometimes more because we have so many members, but we have created that tradition. People like to do it because everybody gets to meet each other. They get to see, friends of theirs that they've known for a long time. We have a few comedians in the crowd, so there's some interesting commentary that can happen. But doing it online would be just too overwhelming and it loses some of the flavor. We still want you to have the opportunity to meet members, so we have some things that are planned during the event where you can get to meet members. We have some breakouts where you'll get to meet members. And then, of course, both Sharice and Ivy and Jennifer have given you names of members that you can call, and members are very open and happy to talk to those looking into the academy because they've been in your shoes as well. So I just wanted to make a comment on that. Before I start System 7, Robert, Jennifer, Sarah, anyone have any comments on anything Denny said or anything at all?
No, I don't. You did a great job.
Okay.
Nope. Thank you.
All right, we're good to go. All right. All right, hopefully everyone else is ready to go for System 7. So here we go. System 7 is the no stress client engagement system. Gosh, that's like a mouthful there. But it really captures the essence of what this system is all about, which is the consultations. You've heard the other systems. We've got a lot of marketing, and from the marketing, it turns into appointments for you in the office. This roadmap you've seen, we had it yesterday during one of the systems. And again, you can see it. We start with the marketing, but there's the personal consultation roadmap and plan design. And then we have subsequent meetings that are all laid out. The whole process is laid out. First, it starts in the workshop. Then when they get to the consultation, what happens in the consultation is exactly what you've said at the workshop as well. So this is part of us building in to the system that you do exactly what you've said you're going to do. So when you do a workshop, you're going to explain, here's what's going to happen when you come in and sit down with me. And then you explain it at the workshop. Then when they come in, it's exactly the way you said. So there's a very important component, which is you're now not saying we're going to do everything. You're actually doing it. You're demonstrating that you do what you say you're going to do. And that has an impact on people. And if you think about your own experience, you've heard lots of different organizations, salespeople, companies tell you, here's what we're going to do. And then do they do it? I know in my experience, I think I'm disappointed more than I'm disappointed more than not, because people don't do what they say they're going to do. So it starts to erode any confidence I had in the company itself. Well, you're in the same position with prospects. So you want to make sure that you and your entire team, you actually do everything you say you're going to do. And we try to help that process by setting things up and then making sure you stick to the system itself. So there's the roadmap. Now, this is an interesting quote. Frank Luntz, he's kind of a pollster, a consultant, does a lot of surveys. And so he came out with this statement about, pessimism and distrust. He said, our national confidence is in pieces, personal expectations shattered, trust has collapsed, little tolerance for promises and pledges. We don't trust anyone anymore. It's kind of like a shocking statement. The interesting thing about that statement, that's more than 10 years old. The question is, you can decide whether you think that's the case right now or not, but in general, we know that the public is somewhat distrusting, somewhat skeptical. People are being inundated with sales messages all the time. And what we want to make sure of is that in everything we do, and the we is your entire team, that you never trigger what we call the salesperson stereotype. And so you want to make sure that what you do, again, we're going to hear it a lot, is that you continually do what you say you're going to do, and that you don't do anything to trigger the salesperson's stereotype. And we all have that stereotype in our head. We know what that salesperson stereotype is like. We don't want to be in that category. And by using this system, you'll see we do the exact opposite. And we're going to go through that today. And so the agenda for this morning, or at least for this system, we're going to talk about the consultation objectives. What are we trying to achieve here? We'll talk specifically about what it takes to succeed. We'll do an overview of this system, the Academy Client Consultation System, and then we'll touch on some specific objections and some tactics. Rule number one, never make assumptions. As you start to do marketing, you're going to be doing a lot of speaking to private groups. You may be speaking to the public if you decide to go into the public marketing and doing the seminars and the workshops, either live or in the web or through the webinar. And you never want to make assumptions about who's in the audience or even who comes into your office. So just keep in mind, don't make assumptions. That's a good rule overall, not just in the seminar marketing or in the practice, just in general, it's a great rule. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to watch a video that kind of brings home that point. There's an example. It's as many times as we've seen that, I just always enjoy watching that. It's kind of funny. And there's obviously the point, don't make any assumptions about who's there, but also there's the sort of the person who can trigger the salesperson. I mean, to me, that guy's like the typical used car salesperson that, there he is. The way we can find out about when Jeff Gordon asks him, okay, well, let's try this. And he says, well, we'll just put you behind the wheel. And that's just such a salesperson's line. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. So we move on to finding out, okay, well, why would we even need a system? We're all attorneys. We've been meeting with clients. And why would we need a system for the consultations themselves? Well, in the very beginning of the Academy, we didn't really think we needed a system. But then over time, because of feedback we were getting from new members, that they were not able to retain clients. So we realized that there was a difference between someone who was referred to your office, because most attorneys get referrals, and the referrals come from some trusted advisor or another client, so that when they come in, they generally hire you. So, there's a strong referral relationship. They come ready to proceed. You've been endorsed as being competent, and they're ready to trust you. That's not the same type of individual when you're out there marketing to the public. You establish this relationship with those in the public by marketing, and then they come in, whether it's a webinar or it's a workshop, but it's sort of a fragile relationship. They've responded, they've met you, okay, so far so good. But people are somewhat on guard, they're a little bit wary. You have to prove yourself, which we get back to doing what you say you're going to do. And they're, in some respect, they're almost looking for reasons to say, well, no, we're not going to do this. So because of that, we recognized that we needed to have a system. And we really surveyed a number of different systems that we thought would be good, that we might be able to use and actually tailor to this type of a consultation, because there's no lack of sales systems out there. And we looked at many of those, and it wasn't until actually a member of ours had told us about a friend of his, and his friend was named Guru Ganesha Khalsa. He's a Sikh, wears a turban, and he was a franchisee of a system called the Sandler Selling System. And he told us that his friend was very, very skilled at sales presentations and at sales meetings, and had a whole system, and was literally the top person in the country in this Sandler Selling System. And so we said, okay, well, great, put us in touch with him. And so he did. And when he did, Robert and I got on the phone with Ganesh, and we can both remember that phone call vividly, even though it was probably about 25 years ago. And we got on the phone, and he said, hey, guys, I know that, SJ, and it was SJ Khalsa, who's a longtime member, that SJ had put us in touch, and he mentioned that you guys were looking into some kind of a sales system. And he said, why don't you give me an idea? First of all, I've got about up to 60 minutes for the meeting, for the phone call today. Does it still work for you guys? We said, sure. He said, okay, well, generally I like to ask some questions. You'll have some questions of me, and we'll figure out, whether there's a fit here or not, and if there's any reason to move forward on this, and we'll figure that out and sort of make a decision on what the next step is. Sound good to you guys? We're like, sure, sounds great. He said, okay, why don't you give me an idea why we're on the phone? And so Robert and I started telling him, well, we have this organization, and we went through all this. We explained the organization, we explained what was going on, we explained the whole, the system of marketing, and then the problem we were having, where some members were not able to have a high percentage of people retain them when they came in for the consultation. And he said, oh, really? Well, tell me a little bit more about that. And so we did, and we had plenty of, we're just talking away, answering his question, telling him more about it. He said, well, how long has this been a problem? We explained, well, it's been about this long, about 6 months since people have been saying this. So we go through that, and then he said, well, you guys, from listening to you, why aren't you guys just doing all the sales stuff? And we explained why we didn't want to do it, and we didn't have a specific system. And he said, well, in the event that, this problem weren't addressed, what do you think would be the result? Sounds like you have a good organization going there and this and that, because what would it look like? And we said, well, we could lose members, people wouldn't be happy, on and on. And he said, okay, well, how important is this to you? And we said, well, it's pretty high on the priority list. And so from there, we arranged a specific next step. And the actual next step was, he said, well, what would you like the next step to be? How do you know I'm the one to begin to do the training and you'll use my system? We said, well, here's what we'd like you to do. We have a member, and we had a specific member who was having difficulty, had been a very successful tax attorney, and he was having trouble with the consultations. And we said, we'd like you to, maybe talk to or work with one of our members, have that member give us feedback after you do a session. And so he said, how about this? How about you have the member fly to my office in Northern Virginia. I'll spend a full 4-hour session. I will tape the session. I'll send you the tape. Then you'll be able to talk to the member, and then we'll put a meeting on the calendar after that to see whether you want to hire me, and we'll have the next step. We said, that's great. Well, we'll cut to the chase of the story, which is we sent the member down. The member spent the morning there, and then the member literally called us from what was called the National Airport back then in Washington, D.C. He got on the phone. He was very excited. He said, that was the best 4 hours of my whole life. It was unbelievable what I learned. And then he had this kind of famous line, which was, I think I met God and his name is Ganesh. And from that was obviously, a very strong endorsement of what he had just experienced. And from there, we had hired Ganesh to come to the academy, do a presentation for several hours at a summit, which then turned into 2-day workshops of learning the system itself. So that's where it all came from, because when we were getting calls from members were telling us, okay, this doesn't work. And we said, well, what doesn't work? And we would go through it step by step and say, okay, well, did you do the marketing? And the answer is yes. Did people show up at the workshop? Yes. Did people at the workshop then make appointments to come into the office? Yes. He said, so far, the system's working. Yep, so far, but the system doesn't work because when they came in the office, they didn't hire me. And so we pointed out, so in other words, everything worked until they were alone with you in the office. And that's usually when the light bulb went on. They said, well, yeah, but, and then they would even tell us, but they're the wrong prospects. Well, we understood that it was very clear that we needed to have a system, because as attorneys, we're not trained the way this system works. We're trained because we've got a lot of information, and generally speaking, one of the biggest downfalls for members in consultations is talking too much. And this system is all about asking good questions and letting the prospects talk and letting the prospects convince themselves and you that they have important items to address, and today is the day that they actually want to address those items. So it's a very different approach than probably anything you've ever seen before. So that's why we needed a system and really where it's come from. Okay, so the objectives are, we're going to uncover what's really important to the prospects. We're going to build rapport and trust. We're going to retain ideal clients, and we're going to have engagement standards, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. This is going to be a stress-free. We're going to reduce the stress for both the prospect, because we don't want somebody to feel under pressure, and we don't want to feel under pressure. Sometimes attorneys feel kind of stressed out by consultations. We want to quickly get to the prospect's real needs. We're going to provide a clear roadmap for next steps, and ultimately they're going to walk out of there really feeling that you and the law firm are their trusted advisor. And again, all of this is the Sandler selling system. And the steps that we have in the system itself, we've got something called the upfront contract. Then we do pain gain. Then we do the investment step. Then we do the decision, ultimate contract proof, and post-sell. Now that might sound like a lot of stuff. The key to all of this is the upfront contract and the pain gain step. Step 1 and 2, that's the real magic. Certainly, we're going to do step 3 and 4, but those happen very naturally. We really don't have to do step 5 and 6. Very rarely does that even come into play. And then we do step 7. Okay, so we're going to go through each of those so you get a feel for the system. Now, we're going to go through this relatively quickly, but we've got lots of materials that bring you through the entire system, and we've got a training program on it as well. Now, as you'll hear a lot, mindset, it's a big deal. It's a big deal overall in the practice. It's a big deal in the consultation itself. And one of the things that Ganesh taught us long ago was that you want to go into consultations not feeling all stressed out. You want to go into consultations where you have a certain mindset. And he always suggested, well, I'd like you to go in there feeling like you're independently wealthy and you don't need the business. So in essence, reducing any stress you have so that that doesn't transfer to the prospect sitting there. We all know that if we're watching somebody speak, just imagine you've been at any type of presentation where there's a speaker, and the speaker's really nervous. Do you feel that nervousness? I'm sure you're all saying, yeah, yes, I've seen it. And when that happens, you can't even really hear the speaker because you're just feeling that nervousness. We want to make sure that we're not stressed out in the consultation, because then it's going to be picked up on by the prospects, and they're going to feel a little bit stressed and uncomfortable. It's the opposite of what we want to do. So we have to make sure that we're in the right mindset when we go into the consultation itself. And again, as I mentioned, it's really a consultation, a consultative selling process, but it's really not selling because we engage in what we call the role reversal. And you'll see how the prospect, because we let them talk and we really guide them, we're really facilitating a conversation with them. We know the questions to ask, we facilitate that conversation, and then they ultimately will convince themselves by hearing what they're saying, and they'll convince us that they have something important to address, and today is the day that they want to do something about it. Now, over time, people say, well, wait a minute, I'm not independently wealthy, and the fact is I do need the business. So we've come up with an alternative mindset that everybody seems to be very comfortable with, and that is that you go in with a mindset that I'm really here to help families solve issues that they have. I'm here to find out, to be curious and find out what are the issues and what's important to you, and is today the day to do something about it. I'm just here to help. And so that's another mindset that you can use. And then preparing, again, preparation is going to be the key to executing this whole system. So you're going to have to put some time and effort into learning the system itself. In addition, we understand that we talked about this yesterday a little bit, there's a picture playing in the mind of a prospect. We know some of the things that are in the mind of a prospect. Can we trust this person? Can we trust this firm? What's the state of the economy? What are people's general impressions of attorneys and what that looks like? So we try to make sure that we address those things, not directly, but again, through our actions. Now, everything that we talk about throughout the steps in the consultation, we have to keep in mind that everything is surrounded by the rapport that we build with the prospects. And that rapport begins with the workshop or the webinar, the interaction with your entire team. It continues on with when they get to the office, when people are going to be coming back into the office for consultations, which many are around the country. Otherwise, you do it over Zoom. Now, why do people trust? Well, sometimes it's just in a sort of an affinity or a chemistry. Strength of the handshake, we've got to modify that a bit because right now handshakes are out the window. How you dress, we addressed that yesterday. We had the video with Ed Asner and JR there. You heard our opinion on how we feel you should dress, and the whole team should dress very professional. The value of having a book versus a brochure. Now, as you'll get to experience with the Academy, certainly we have brochures that can be customized for your law firm. In addition, we have what we call a book project. And a book project is where you become a co-author of a book. Having a book elevates you above many, if not most, and if not all, other attorneys in your community, where you're now the author of a book. And so you'll be able to look into that program as well. And something else we've discovered is certainly it's important what you do and why you do it. We've talked about how important that is for building the culture of the firm. But with respect to the public, there's another sort of component that people are going to pay you for who you are. When you are known as the top estate planning attorney in your community, that's why they want to hire you. It's not about the technical work. It's about who you are. And when you're the go-to person by having a book, by speaking in public, by media coming to you to ask questions when there's issues on tax law or estate planning or things of that nature, that's what you want to elevate to, is that position in the community, and we'll help you do that. What's present but remains unsaid? Again, we know what's in the mind of prospects. They have some unspoken fears. Will the firm return my phone calls? Will I be a priority? We've all been in that situation where, when someone's trying to have us hire them, whoever that happens to be, whether it's a professional or it's purchasing different things from different companies. On the front end, it's one way, but then once you hire, it's all of a sudden, sometimes it changes. And like, wow, I was really important up until I signed the contract. Now I feel like a number. We want to make sure that's not the way our prospects and clients ever feel, that they remain a priority. Will we address their unique situation? Will I remain important after I retain them? All things that are unspoken fears. And what we like to do is we like to continually demonstrate that we are trustworthy, and we continually put that into the system. And if you follow the system, you will be saying things, then you'll be demonstrating that we do what we say we're going to do. Very, very powerful to do that. Back to the preparation is always considering your mindset, and then always kind of checking in with yourself before you go into every meeting. What's my mindset? What's my intention? What's my energy level here? What's my presence? And I always like to go back to your own personal experience when you've experienced other people and you meet them, or you go into a meeting and right off the bat, you can feel like something's off. Something's off with the energy, or they're present, or they're distracted. Well, you want to make sure that you're always consistent when you go into meetings with prospects, regardless of what else is going on in the business and in your life. For that meeting, if you can check in with yourself through some type of a routine so that you're coming across with the right energy, the right mindset, the right energy, the right presence, that's going to go a long way to having success. Because up to this point, everything in the system has worked. People have come in, they've made appointments, now they're in your office, and now this is your time to shine and really execute this part of the system, which is going to happen by spending some time with the system and really learning it. So little routine there for you to keep in mind. Now on rapport. Rapport is an interesting thing. And Ganesh taught us a sort of a shorthand way of thinking about rapport. It comes from transactional analysis. And it's either that you make people feel okay, or you make them feel uncomfortable, not okay. And what we want to do in the consultation, primarily we want to keep people in the okay state. Now, there may be some moments where we ask some tough questions, but we're going to preempt that by getting permission to ask difficult questions. But in general, rapport is when you're able to keep people in a comfortable or an okay state versus a not okay state. And all these things, there's a way to sort of pave the road to the consultation. There are certain, we'll call them wow factors, making sure everyone on the team understands the philosophy of the firm with respect to how we treat prospects. How's the prospect greeted by the receptionist? What's the office layout look like? Is there a warm feeling? Are you introducing the prospects to other people on the way to wherever you're going to meet them. Sometimes that you may walk past someone and you might want to just stop and say, let me introduce you to Jan. She's a paralegal here at the firm. She's been with us for 12 years. Jan, this is Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Okay, so little things like that. You being comfortable, the whole team being comfortable, and a certain way that all prospects are actually treated. Again, your demeanor, how you look, how you speak, how you listen, what's your level of focus or distraction. Those are things that you really want to think about, as well as what's the setup of your room itself. Now, some time ago when I was meeting with clients all the time, I had a very specific routine. I would meet in my office with the prospects. And in my office, there was a desk, but there was also a round conference table, not overly large, but not too small, just about the right size. And it had chairs around it. And on that table, I would always have what we call the DOE book, or what a completed estate plan looked like. I would have a yellow pad. I would have my client intake form, which you'll get to know we call the CIF. I'd have the funding material there. I'd have all my supplies laid out. I'd have the supplies, in front of one of the chairs. And that was obviously signaling that was where I was going to sit. And that was always to the back of the door. My back was to the door, and next to the door, there was a side light, a little window on the side. And when we got into the office, after I greeted them, I would always walk them to the office. I'd introduce them to people on the way if there was anyone that we ran into. And when we got into the office, I said, you can sit wherever you'd like. I like to sit here because I don't want to get distracted by people walking by. Now, I did that because that was true. I didn't want to get distracted, but it also sent a message. I was going to be focused on them. However you're going to organize your office or the conference room, you want it to be the same way every time. So you're not scrambling around, changing things, making sure it's right. Every time, the same exact way. Have a routine for yourself, have a specific routine of how the room is going to be set up, and that way you get into a rhythm and you'll be comfortable, you'll be at ease, which will hopefully put prospects at ease as well. That's all part of the rapport which surrounds all parts of the system itself, okay? Now, let's go through step one. Step one is the upfront contract, affectionately known as the UFC. The UFC has some components that you can see there. We're going to go through those. The UFC is that we want to first confirm, make whatever small talk. It's good to see you. What workshop did you go to? They'll tell you, we went to the one on Mission Bay at the Hilton. Great. I think I remember you. That was on the Tuesday night. Yes. Now, let's get started. As I said at the workshop. Now, notice my language. As I said at the workshop, where I'm referring back to what I said, and now I'm saying, as I said at the workshop, we have up to 90 minutes for this meeting. Does that still work for you? Now, at the workshop, I told them all these things. I told them what's going to happen. So now here it is. It's happening just the same way. I even do a little reminder. Does it still work for you? Invariably, people say yes. Again, when we do some work on, in depth on this, sometimes members say, well, what if they say they don't have time? Okay, they don't have up to 90 minutes. Okay, well, should we reschedule a meeting when you have enough time? There's all kinds of ways to handle those things. We're not going to go into that in depth today. But that's step one. Do you have the meeting scheduled for up to 90 minutes? They say, yeah, that's great. Okay. The agenda, as I mentioned, you'll likely have some questions. I'll have some questions for you. What I'd like to find out is what's important to you and your family, and is today the day you want to do something about it? How's that sound? And they say, fine, that sounds good. Okay. At some point, we'll figure out whether there's a fit. At some point, we'll figure out what the next step is, and you'll make a decision. Yes, you want to get started, or no. And by the way, no is okay. Now, this is a very important thing because we're letting them know we're going to make a decision. Yes, we want to get started, or no, and no is okay. So that's taking the pressure off. Then at that point, you're going to explain why it is you like a decision. Everything that is said during this segment, you've already said at the workshop. Now, they may or may not remember all of it, and the likelihood is they're not going to remember it all, but you've already said all these things at the workshop. And the explanation is because we like to have clarity about whose plate this is on. Is it still something you have to address, or is it now on our plate and we're going to get this plan done to protect you and your family? I just like to be crystal clear about that during the meeting. And they're always going to be fine with that. This idea of the step 4, all decision makers are present, this really doesn't remain in the UFC because there are so many components prior to them coming to the office through the system where we're making sure all decision makers are actually at the office or at the meeting when they come in. And there's phone calls, there's letters, and we continue to reiterate that. Then in addition, say, by the way, everything that we talk about today is confidential. So I want to make sure that you understand that, completely confidential. And I want to make sure it's okay. At some point, there may be some questions that are rather personal or difficult. I want to make sure that I have permission to ask those questions. And generally they say yes. And then we add in, now, anything else you'd like to add to the agenda? And that's it. That's the upfront contract itself. The reason that we do this is that it provides a mutually agreed upon roadmap with a clear time frame for the meeting. Ganesh always liked to analogize it to like at a baseball game, before the game starts, what always happens? Well, for those who follow baseball, you've got the umpire at home plate, and then you've got the managers from each team that come out, and they kind of go through all the rules. Even though they've played like 100 games or 162 games a year, and they've been doing this for years and years and years, they still do that every time, just to make sure we're in this ballpark, here's how everything works. And they go through it. Same thing that we're doing. We're just having a mutually agreed upon roadmap with a clear time frame. Here's what's going to happen today, and giving them an opportunity to modify that roadmap if they want to, but they generally don't do that. It permits questions by both sides. It makes a decision sort of required, a clear outcome, yes or no, and it's okay. See, that's what's so different about this is we're taking the pressure off, and we're letting them know that if you don't want to move forward, that's okay. It demonstrates professionalism, and it continues to raise the level of trust that they have in us and the firm itself. Okay, so that's really the first segment, is the UFC. Next is step 2, getting the truth on the table and how we go about doing that. And David Sandler, who created the system and has written a book, people make buying decisions emotionally, and they justify those decisions intellectually. So we know that buying, and we're all subject to this, we buy based upon emotions. And then we kind of backfill by justifying it. Oh, well, here's why I did that, because it's a good car and it does this and it does that. Oh, its safety features are great. We're gonna have kids in them. We all justify it, but we do it emotionally. Same thing happens in our conference rooms or in our offices. And so step 2 is what we call the pain gain step. And there's 3 components to it. There's surface level pain, there's financial, and then there's emotional, where they actually make the decision. And if we go back to the very first conversation that Robert and I had with Ganesh on the phone, Ganesh took us through this system. Sometimes people are saying, or members are saying, well, won't people see we're doing this? Or no, nobody ever sees you're doing anything. Just like we had no clue what Ganesh was doing other than just asking us questions. And of course, he executed the system masterfully. And we go back and we kind of laugh about it, going, oh, remember when he said this? Oh, yeah. We were just like, oh, yeah. Oh, here's the problem. And then he brought us down to pain level 2. Oh, well, what happens if you don't do? Oh, it's going to be a disaster. And how important? Very important. And he was even like, well, you guys seem, you seem busy. You seem like a lot going on there. Is this really that, high a priority right now? And well, oh yeah, very high priority. And he just executed the system, and it was flawless, and it works. Same thing happens with prospects in the law firm setting. So level one is, and we have very specific questions that you'll see. And again, you'll do more training, and this is just a quick overview, is that we get the first level pain out by questions. What prompted you to come in? We know they were at the workshop. Now they're sitting down. We've gone through the UFC, and now we transition, and you'll have your pet question. What prompted you to come in? And the magic is getting comfortable with some silence, is being able to ask the question and then let them tell you. And then the next thing they're likely to say, oh, tell me a little bit more about that, or can you be more specific? Again, this is just to give you an idea of the questions, and then they'll start talking. Then based upon what they say, you will have more questions, but we're going to give you the other questions you want to get out. How long have you had this concern? What have you done to address it? How's that worked out so far? As I read these questions, I can remember Ganesh saying this to us. Oh, how long has it been? Oh, it's about 6 months now. What have you done? Well, we tried other. I'm laughing because I remember when our answer. Well, we had 3 other sales trainers that we looked at, we talked to, we had them come in. He's like, oh, that's fabulous. How'd that work? Not very well. It didn't hit the mark. They didn't really have a system. We were looking for a system. So he was just like, oh, I remember one of Ganesh's great lines is, wow, this sounds like a lot of pressure for me. I don't know, it's a lot of pressure. I got to make this work, huh? And, you know, he's just backing away. That's not what a typical salesperson does, because he knew by asking these questions that we would be convincing ourselves and him that we wanted to try him out. And so just kind of interesting, but these are the questions in the first level. What prompted you to come in today? Where's the best place for us to start today? What would make this a great meeting for you today? Those are the kinds of questions that you want to ask. Then you want to get into, tell me more about it. Can you be more specific? Then historical, how long has it been a problem? These are all very natural questions once you get these sort of internalized, because you don't want to be reading off a piece of paper in there. You know, so anyway, you get the idea, first time through. Now, second level, you heard the Ganesh story with us on the second level pain. What happens? What's it going to look like if you don't address the problem? So, you know, this was dramatic when he told us, and we're like, oh, this would be a big problem, because if people don't retain, then they won't stay members. And, you know, we've rolled out the disaster if we didn't solve the problem. Just like you will be asking, well, once you hear the problems and you've gone through the top level pain, the pain on level 1, in the unlikely event something were to happen to one or both of you prematurely, what's your plan going to look like? What's the impact going to be right now? This is where they might say, well, I don't know. You're the attorney, you tell me. And that's where you say, well, you see, you can't give up, because prospects are very tricky. They're always trying to put it back on your side of the fence so you'll do the talking. Okay, so you have to be on alert for that. Ganesh always said that, think of it like a tennis game where, you know, you're playing tennis and the prospects, you know, there's the tennis ball and you hit it over to you get it over to the prospect side, so they're doing the talking. They hit it right back over to you, where they tell you that, you know, you're chasing the tennis ball for them all the time. That's not what you want to do. So when they hit the ball back over the fence or over the net to you, that, well, you're the attorney, tell me what's going to happen. You go, well, of course I could tell you what's going to happen, but in your experience, what do you imagine might happen, since you've already let me know you have no estate plan whatsoever, or likely they always say, I have an old will, but it's outdated. What do you think would happen? Well, I'm not really sure, but I had an aunt that went into and everybody has another relative or they know someone who's been through the nightmare of a probate or some other type problem because they weren't prepared. They didn't have proper documents. So you can't just give up easily on pain level 2. You have to make sure that they articulate what the disaster would look like, because it's much more powerful when they hear themselves saying it than you telling them. And I go back to this sort of rule. Who do you listen to more than anybody else in the whole world? And it's going to be you. We all listen to ourselves. So that's pain level 2. Pain level 3. This is where you get into, okay, the emotional. Remember, we start with the surface level, then the economic impact, and now third is, okay, on the emotional level. How high a priority is this for you to get addressed? And then just see what they say. You're answering the question. You might say, well, it sounds like you have a lot going on based upon what you said. How high a priority is this for you? It sounds like your plate's pretty full. See, again, we're backing away. They're the ones who are going to be convincing us and themselves that, yes, this is a high priority. And then you just ask, okay, what do you see as the next step? What would you like to happen next? Okay, so that's a quick run through of UFC and then the pain gain. The investment step, when at that point they say, well, we'd like to get started, you might say, when you say get started, tell me what you mean by that. See, that's the assumption part. Remember, we started with assumptions. We always think we know what people mean by something. And when you don't ask all the questions, that's when you get the rug pulled out from you down the road at the end, after you've done all the work. We'd rather hear about everything up front early in the consultation. So now they say, well, we'd like to hire the firm and get our estate plan started. Okay, before we do anything else, let's go back to what I said at the workshop. There's an investment. And yes, I like to use the word investment. 2 components. One, it's an investment of time, and the other are the fees that we talked about. So let's talk about that. And now you go into the time. Let me go back. Now we go back, we talk about the time and the money. You're gonna have to invest about 4 to 6 hours of your time over the next several weeks on this matter. Do you have that kind of time to invest? They invariably say yes. And then it's like, and let me review the fees. Our fees, it's gonna be $5,000 and we get 80% upfront. So today you write a check for $4,200, as I mentioned at the workshop. And then when you come back in to sign all the documents, that's when you pay the balance of the fee. See what they say. Okay, so we get all that out of the way up front. Decision step. See, the decision step for us, this system was built for much more complex sales situations than ours. Again, I go back to the beginning with Ganesh. When Robert and I explained everything, the whole system to him, it was during that first phone call, Ganesh said, okay, based upon what you've said, so people got marketing material, they came to a workshop. At the workshop, you told them everything, including the fees. You told them the process, how long it would take. Then they made an appointment to come in. He said, why are they even coming in other than to hire you? I don't know, I'm not sure this is a sales situation. So he was just like, I'm not sure this qualifies as an actual sale. This is just too easy. And, he used the analogy of, he goes, that's like putting a beach ball on a golf tee and trying to hit the ball. This should be like why else are they coming in? Which is a very good mindset to have. And again, I think you'll develop that over time as you get comfortable with the system and actually executing the system itself. So the decision step happens naturally through a pain gain, being very good at the pain gain, and then saying, what would you like the next step to be? Let's talk about the investment, and then we're reiterating, okay, we're ready to get started, and then we take out our client intake form. So the decision step is not as precise as in other situations. It happens very naturally in our settings, and we've seen that over time. So there's not much to do on decision. Ultimate contract, a clear plan from getting point A to point B. Yes, we can take them through the roadmap and say, okay, here's the plan, here's what it's going to look like, here are the steps we're going to take, and then you go through each of the meetings and you can actually put down the time and day for the meetings, so you can bring them through that, but it's very simple in our setting. Proof step doesn't happen. Evidence that we're going to have a plan that meets their needs, that all happens in the CIF when we're doing the intake. We're going through and showing them, here's how we're going to protect your daughter, because on distribution, it's going to remain in trust. She's going to be the trustee of her own trust, so that when she gets married to the gentleman that you mentioned that you're not that happy with, because he doesn't seem to have a good job and your daughter's going to be a doctor, then in this situation, everything will be in this trust itself. So there's the protection, and we explain the limitations to that as well. But the proof itself, the only time you get into this a little bit, and we've had a lot of experience with this, is when you're dealing with engineers. And for anyone who's dealt with engineers before, they get into details that can somewhat wear you out. So you just be on the alert for engineers. But generally the proof step isn't very difficult. And then we have this other step, which is kind of a magical step. It's called the post-sell. The post-sell is after we've gone through everything, we've gone through the client intake form, we've gotten all the information we need, we've actually gone through the fee agreement where we've explained different parts of the fee agreement, they've signed it, they've actually written the check, and now they're giving that check and the fee agreement back to you. And before you accept it, you say, okay, there's one other thing I want to make sure of. See, the post-sell, as you can see from these bullets, it allows the prospect to actually back out of the decision they just made. I know that's going to make some of you uncomfortable, but let's go through it. And we do that because here's what we're preventing. If you do this long enough and you don't do the post-sell, at some point, someone who hired you on Wednesday and gave you the check and signed your fee agreement will email you, text you, or leave a message on your answering machine that evening. We thought about this more. We decided to hold off, don't cash the check. Okay? If you do it long enough, that will happen. And because we know that, we want to do a couple of things. One, we want to eliminate that from happening. Plus, we want to do something different than a salesperson that raises the level of trust that new clients now have in us and prospects have in us, and that is the post-sell. And the post-sell is when you've had them sign the check, do the agreement, they're ready to give it to you, and say, before we finalize this, based upon my experience, everything that you've decided today, absolutely fantastic decisions. I do this, every day, all day with prospects. I know you've made great decisions here, but I want to be 100% certain that you're absolutely comfortable with everything that we've done here today before we proceed. Because I want to make sure that you don't, on the way home in the car, you don't rethink it, or you get home and talk to a neighbor. I want to really make sure that you're rock solid on everything. So how do you feel about everything that you've done today? And based upon members actually doing this, members will tell you every time that they've done this, they can see the level of trust go up in the eyes of the prospect. They can just see it. There's a feeling in the room. So this is something that many members do, but some members are a little uncomfortable. And we know one of the things that pops into your head, it's that little voice going, well, wait a minute, why would I be questioning their decisions or giving them a chance to do that and raising this issue? Won't that make them think they've done? No, that doesn't happen. That's in your head. In their head, they're going, wow, this person's not pressing me and running to the bank with my check or rushing me out of the room before I change. They're doing just the opposite. That raises the level of trust. In addition, so that's the post-sell, and then part of it is also where you have the introduction of engagement standards. Engagement standards is a whole other system where part of the legal services agreement, there's another couple of pages that you can do. We have samples of these pages and sample of engagement standards. And here's what this does. Anything that clients or prospects do that kind of throw a wrench into the system, things you don't like that they do, we create an engagement standards that is the opposite. This is how you get the most out of our firm, and then this is what we expect from clients as well. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to be on time for meetings. We're going to, and you have a whole list of different things that we as the firm to do. And then the next page is, here's what we expect from clients. If you're not going to be at a meeting, you give us 48 hours notice, otherwise there's a $500 fee. Okay, now you'll figure out what the fee is, but once you've printed all the documents and you've date stamped everything, and someone cancels at the last minute, that's not fun. That's costly to your firm. Up front, if you let them know, if you do that, there's going to be a fee. And then when they call to do it, which they invariably will, you remind them, well, there's going to actually be a fee. Remember the engagement standards? There was a fee. It's going to be $400 or $500 if we have to reprint. They're going to magically, whatever the conflict was, the conflict goes away. Little things like that. Again, we're just going through it here in 60 seconds. We have samples of engagement standards. What the engagement standards does is, first of all, it makes it more productive for everybody, and it helps you mold and shape the client base that you want to work with. That's the beauty of all this. You know, you don't take everyone on as a client. You're going to attract people, you're going to repel people. Engagement standards help you mold that client base to be the people that you really want to work with. So that's engagement standards. Promotes clarity, productivity, enjoyment for everybody, and fulfillment for you and your firm. And I'll tell you, the ones who love engagement standards, your whole team, because they have to deal with the pain in the neck client. And this helps eliminate those clients. So that's the post-sell. That's step 7 in the system. Again, I went over the engagement standards as well. We've got lots of samples of that as well. Now, a couple of other quick points. Some consultation tactics. Again, you'll get into this once you really delve into the system. These are tactics. They're called a reward, a reverse, dummying up, strip lining, reviewing, and a scale of 1 to 10. Reward. Clients, you know, this happens naturally during meetings. These are just, you know, labels and names that have been given to certain things that happen. Client asks the question, hey, that's a good question. Here's the magic. The good question is the reward. The magic is, why do you ask? See, behind every question that a client or that a prospect asks is the real issue. The question isn't the issue. The question is behind, or the issue is behind the question. That's why you do the reverse. That's a good question. Why do you ask? Now, sometimes it'll be very natural to do it. Sometimes you'll get a little uncomfortable. Like if someone says, well, what's the exemption? What's the exclusion amount right now from estate taxes? What's that exclusion amount? Now, you may in fact know that, you know, it's 11 million something something. But why are they asking that question? Don't assume you know why they're asking. And you just ask the question, why do you ask? Well, because I have an uncle, he's got a really large estate, and he's talking about his uncle. Well, you would have never known that if you just threw out the number itself. It happens in a lot of situations. People ask a question, what's the real issue? Ask them, why do you ask? Okay, it's going to take time for you to get comfortable with it, but once you do it, that's when you'll see the magic of what happens. In these consultations, because it's new, it's going to take you time to get really comfortable with it. Sometimes you'll get lost and confused. And you go, where am I in the system? And you'll just like jump to something else, but more than likely you will revert to what you've always done in the past. And what we generally do in the past is we start explaining, we start talking, we start educating, and that's really not productive. You're not going to arm wrestle them through your education, through your knowledge to hire you. You will confuse them and give them an easy way out where their problem is not addressed. Remember, the whole reason you're doing this is to help them address a problem that they actually have. So when I say you're going to give them an easy way to walk, well, that's actually not doing your job, because now their problem is that they walk in with a problem, they walked out with a problem. Okay? Our job is to really uncover it and help them make a decision that's in their best interest. That's what the whole system really does. Now, dummying up is where you got to get lost and you go, okay, and you can actually say, you know, run that by me again. I'm a little confused by what you've said. And that gives you a time to kind of regroup and have them restate what they've been talking about. Okay, so again, we've got the reward reverse, we've got the dummy up, the strip line. This is a very, very effective technique where clients can start, you know, a prospect can be in there, they're telling you have a problem, and then they say something that they say, well, you know, the holidays are coming up. That's a famous one. That's a great one. It's October. You're meeting with someone. They're telling you they've got some massive problems. You've taken them down the pain funnel, and then some reason they go, well, we say, okay, well, what do you see as next step? Well, the holidays are coming up, so we're thinking maybe, maybe after the holidays. I said, okay, doesn't sound like this is that high a priority. That's a strip line where you're now highlighting the fact that, okay, doesn't sound like this is a high priority right now. I understand the holidays are more important. Well, when you take it and strip line it and phrase it that way, most of the time they're going to go, well, no, it's important. Then you go, I'm confused. And now, if you've done your job in step 2, the pain gain, you go, as I recall what you said, that if this didn't get addressed, do you recall what you said this would look like? And now they repeat, and you make them repeat it, unless you have to review, but you make them repeat. Well, I said that it would be a nightmare, and then it's like, okay, help me out. I understand the holidays are coming up. You tell me, what would you like the next step to be? Sometimes by doing the strip line, they go, no, this is important. And now they're back in the game, so to speak, and you're actually doing your job because you've been a good counselor, asking the right questions in the right way, with the right tone, with the rapport, so that they're going to address the problem that they came in with rather than not address it. And we know the number one reason people don't do estate planning is procrastination. And you're just trying to help them navigate sometimes emotional, complex situations. So that's strip line, extremely effective, extremely effective. Reviewing is another technique where you're actually able to review. Let me review. Here's what we've covered so far today. You said you came in because your daughter is now engaged to someone. Your words, you're uncomfortable with your potential future son-in-law because, and you lay it out. That raises the level of confidence. They know you've been listening. You've heard what they said. And when you're fully engaged, because you don't have to think about the system because you know the system, they're going to feel your full engagement. Reviewing, very, very powerful, lets them know you're listening, raises the level of trust and confidence they have in you. Next technique, scale of 1 to 10. People say, well, we do really want to get this done. I can say, well, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being doing it today, 1 is over the next year, maybe. Where are you? And they say, it doesn't matter what they say 6. Okay. You might say, why so high? Now they're going to start telling you, well, they might say, well, that's not that high. Okay. What needs to happen for this to be a 10? Okay, you'll play around with this, but a 1 to 10 scale gives you a good gauge and gets them to do more talking because you're just going to ask questions based upon their response. They say it's an 8. Okay, 8. Wow. Why so high? And they might tell you, well, because this is important, and they're reiterating all the reasons why this is important. When they do that, it's kind of tough to leave without addressing something that they've said is important. Again, you always have the question of what has to happen for it to be a 10. See what they say. Okay, those are a quick overview of the consultation tactics. I know it's a lot of information here. It's a fabulous system. Got many Academy members who have become masters at this system, and many are learning it, working on it, and continuing to improve that skill. But here's what we want to do. Sarah, could you put up that next slide before we go to System 8? Remember the video we showed, Jeff Gordon zooming around in the whole thing? Well, we're going to show you the rest of the story with respect to that. Sarah, why don't you go to the next screen, and then we can go into the chat. And what we'll do is we'll resume in 5 minutes, go in the chat, watch the rest of the story of what happened with respect to that Pepsi Max spoof.
The best part of that movie, because we've seen it so many times and it just makes us laugh every time, is that the expression, "This never works," which is hilarious. And then to sit here and watch all of your faces as you're watching the video, I can almost tell where you are in the video by the kind of expressions on your face. It's really quite amazing. Okay, well, here's something that I'm sure you've been lying awake at night wondering about, and that is creating an efficient workflow system. This is something that is very difficult to explain in words. You have to see what a workflow looks like, but I'll give it my best shot here. So System 8 is an efficient workflow systems or efficient workflow systems that's drafting, reviewing, and executing state-of-the-art estate plans. So what we've got is a step-by-step path that we've talked about a number of times in different modules. It's the Family Legacy Wealth Planning System. Remember the thing you need in marketing? You need a kind of unique planning system, and this is what it is. So we talked about step 1 with the personal consultation, roadmap, and plan design, the asset inventory meeting, the plan development, the formal signing ceremony, risk assessment, funding, and plan delivery, and then, of course, lifetime communication and updates. And so there needs to be workflow for every one of those things, so everyone on the team is on the same page. So let's go to the personal consultation. Sandy did just such a great job talking about the system of doing the personal consultation. Let's now talk about what the workflow is after the client's given the go-ahead to move forward on the estate plan. So the client's retained and the plan design has been done, and the attorney fills out the client intake form. Now this is a multiple page document called the CIF. So if people refer to something called the CIF, you'll know what it is, client intake form, where you're taking all of the information, the names, the addresses, the phone numbers, the names of the beneficiaries, the names of the fiduciaries, all of those things are done in the client intake form. Also, you give the clients this client legal services agreement, which has an attachment, remember, about your engagement standards. They pay the retainer of 80% of the fee or more, and then the clients receive a funding instructions, and it's the form of a booklet for asset inventory meeting that's scheduled for approximately 2 weeks later. So they come in for their personal consultation, get all the information to create the plan, give them the asset inventory booklet, and then schedule the meeting for about 2 weeks later, where you can get all of the information on their assets. And then future meetings are also scheduled. These will be the final signings, and you'll schedule those based upon the efficiency of your office in actually getting documents ready in time. So that's the first meeting, the personal consultation. And again, you give the clients their roadmap, and the roadmap has everything they need to know about it, an actual roadmap. Here we are at the first consultation, and here we're going to the asset inventory in a couple of weeks. Now, in the personal consultation, one of the most important things to do, other than retaining the client, is asset gathering instructions. So we give them this thing called the client asset booklet, and we have one for married, single, same sex. And what we like for clients to get at that meeting is something called an accordion file for statements and copies, because you want statements from the investments and the bank accounts, and you want copies of the deeds, you want everything that you can get so that you can effectively do the funding. So the asset inventory meeting is scheduled for a couple of weeks later, and at that time you're going to be able to have a confirmation of all of the assets of their estate. So here's the client asset booklet at the consultation. The attorney asks, and they check off the assets the client owns, and the client only fills out the appropriate pages. So what we've done, and I know that if you've done this for any length of time, there are multitude of assets that that clients could have, including copyrights, patents, trademarks, yachts, airplanes. But the average client, they don't have all of those things. I mean, those things are rare, and you want to collect information on them. But you don't want the client to go through pages and pages of things that don't relate to them in order to to get to things that do relate to them. So what we've done is we put all of the common assets up front. And you can actually turn the client asset booklet around so it faces the clients, and you can actually start checking off things for them. Do you have bank accounts? Do you have savings accounts, CDs? Do you have investment accounts? So that you're making it as easy as possible for the client to let you know what assets they have. And that's that client asset booklet. Now, I mentioned earlier about this accordion file. And this file has this accordion file. You can buy them at any, any kind of office supply store. And we've got examples. And here's one here. I don't know whether you can see it or not, but it's a kind of a plastic sort of thing. It opens up, and it has got all of these places for different kinds of asset types. And what you would do is you would put labels on each of these portions of the accordion file for bank accounts and all of these other things. And the nice thing about it is they bring this back and you keep it. So you've got all of these things. So you can use this over and over again for multiple clients, and you keep all of the information straight. So it's got multiple tabs, reusable, and the assets are checked off on the client asset booklet. So now we're at step 2. This is this asset inventory meeting. We have found out that clients, when they're motivated to get the plan done, you want to capitalize on that motivation and enthusiasm for them to finally have made the decision to create their estate plan. And so you want to make sure that that enthusiasm is still there. So in 2 weeks, you're doing this asset inventory meeting. In the past, the inventory of assets used to happen far later in the process, but people are weary at that point, or they've lost the initial enthusiasm, and it's more difficult to get information about the assets. So what we did is we readjusted the process and put the asset inventory right after the personal consultation, so people are still ready to go to get their plan done. And of course, this is the asset inventory client meeting. And it's really, you can do it in 2 ways. You can do it in a meeting in the office, and that's, when we return back to normal, if that's the case, then it can be in the office and the clients bring in this accordion file. This is not a lawyer job unless you're solo and you're doing everything. It's generally a paralegal's job. They make copies and return the originals to the client. And then they review all of the paperwork to make sure they've got everything. And then the last thing on the column there says confirms estate planning information. When you're in the personal consultation, you've been getting all of the contact information, beneficiaries, fiduciaries, all that kind of stuff. But sometimes the clients, the attorney will write down like a grandchild maybe named Brian, and you wrote down B-R-I-A-N. And the client really didn't, do anything about that. They didn't understand that you put B-R-I-A-N, or they didn't really think to tell you that, no, it's B-R-Y-A-N. Well, if you don't catch that, then you're in a situation at the formal signing ceremony where all of the documents are printed and you've spelled the name of one of those damn beneficiaries incorrectly, and you got to redo everything. It makes you look foolish. So what we do in this asset inventory meeting is we confirm, or the paralegal confirms everything that you've got in your CIF, the names of the beneficiaries and fiduciaries, the dates of birth. You can't even imagine how many grandparents, get the dates of birth of their grandchildren wrong. And then again, it's put into the documents, and there's revisions that have to be made. So that's the way it works in the office. Now, in the if you're not having people come into the office, you can do it over Zoom. Same thing. Review all the paperwork and confirm. And if you're using Counsel Pro 8, which you will be, the client, if they want to, rather than sending all of the information in physically, they can just upload all of those statements and things up to that portal. Remember we talked about the portal yesterday? That can all be put there. And then again, they confirm the estate planning information in that asset inventory meeting. And by the way, we are so, we emphasize this so much that if you are a professional estate planning attorney and you are not funding the documents that you create, we believe you're committing malpractice. So that's why the fees are high the way they are, because we want to make sure that the client gets all of those assets. Yeah, you tally all the assets, you transfer all the assets, and you track as to whether or not they've actually been transferred into the name of the trust. That is the most work that you will do or your team will do in the entire estate planning process. Funding is where it eats up time and you want to be very efficient. Creating the documents is no big deal. Remember I told you that creating the plan is probably the easiest part of the process. So the asset inventory meeting is designed to capitalize on the enthusiasm, get the inventory of all of the assets they own, and then correct, if necessary, any misinformation that you got in your personal consultation. Now, step 3 is the family legacy plan development. And this is just a fancy way of saying that you're going to turn all of your notes of the client intake form and the information that you glean in the asset inventory meeting to your document production people. Again, if you're the sole person there, that you're just turning it over, moving it from the right hand to the left hand. And then you go into the Counsel Pro software and you enter the information and boom, we've got an estate plan. Like I think a 300-page estate plan, really, really comprehensive. So that's the step 3, has nothing to do with client meetings. It's what happens in your office. So I want to show you what an efficient workflow system looks like. It's drafting, presenting, and executing state-of-the-art estate plans. It tracks all the work from the moment the firm is retained. It produces, if you're doing it properly, error-free documents and generates, we've seen this over and over again, generates a wow experience for the clients, because you will be presenting to them a portfolio of documents professionally presented in a wonderfully professional looking binder. And the clients will, you know, it's a lot of it is theater, but you want to make sure that they see that they have bought something that's intangible. An estate plan is intangible. You want to do everything you can to bring that into a tangible product that you can show people. And I don't know whether we've got copies of the binders available so that people can see what they look like, but it's a really, really great looking product. So I'm not going to go over all of this. I just want to show you what a fully built out workflow looks like. And it's all inside the software. So it's inside the software and you go step by step. And it talks about, this is just a screenshot of a funding system. And there's one for every part of the process. Here's the estate plan development workflow system, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, and it's step by step. That's what you want, so that when you hire somebody new, they come in and they don't have to guess which step goes where. It's all laid out for them. Now, step 4 is the family legacy plan formal signing ceremony. Often people say, oh yeah, this is the signing ceremony. Clients come in and sign their documents. Oh my God, you're missing the magic of this moment. This moment is a chance for you to have real theater. It's a formal signing ceremony, and you want to have all the trappings to show that this is a big deal in their lives. They've procrastinated about this for 50, 60, at least decades in many cases. They've procrastinated and now they're getting it done. You want to play up on that. You don't want to just say, okay, sign here, notarize here, sign here. You want to make it into a ceremony, that they're doing something really, really special. Do you declare that this is your last will and testament and that you have revoked all prior wills and testaments? And wait for them to answer. You want to make sure that there is absolutely solemnity to the fact that they're signing their estate plan. So this is the overview of it. You want to continue the bonding process, and if you've got an estate planning paralegal who's doing the final signing ceremony, they will be doing the bonding process. And remember, yesterday we talked about the goal is to have clients and prospects call the team and not you, so that they can continue the bonding about the firm rather than you individually. This is where you get a chance to show that again. So the paralegal has this bonding process. Now here's something that you haven't heard before, but this is one of the magic items that we do at the Academy. We have something called the final signing video. And this is a video where we took all of the documents, every single article of the documents, and we wrote out a script in layperson language as to what every one of the articles means. And it is done in a video. And then as a part of the video, there's also a section of it that says, and these are the people that you picked for your fiduciaries. These are your beneficiaries. And so it's a very customized video. Nobody in your area, I can guarantee you, unless you've got another Academy member in your area, gives a video to the clients of all of the work that they've done. Now, is this video for the clients? Well, no, it's not really for the clients. It's for the children, the grandchildren, the fiduciaries, so they can know what mom and dad did back in 2020 when they created this estate plan. Because in the old days, if we didn't have a video and you did all of this complex explanation about what the estate plan was to these 75 and 80-year-old people, by the time they hit the parking lot to go home, they have forgotten 95% of what you've said. Trust me, it happens. And so we wanted to find a way so that the clients could feel comfortable walking out with a video that they know they don't have to remember all of this. It's all in the video. And so that's this separate a product that's given for all of your clients. And so what happens is there's a video review of the estate plan when the clients come in. They sit and watch a video. We give them instructions and they write down any questions they've got. Then the paralegal comes in after they've seen the video and answers any questions, and then signs, witnesses, and notarizes all of the documents. Collect the final payment, and then schedule this risk assessment, funding, and plan delivery meeting. Now, we met a lot of, like all innovations, you meet resistance when you do it. So we had this idea of doing this video. And so a lot of people said, oh no, clients are never going to go for that. It sounds like it's too cheap and you're not really working with them one-on-one. And so we asked them to give it a try. And everyone who had concerns about it, who had tried it, said clients love it because they know that they can take it home. And it saves you and your team a ton of time. Not only does it save them time, but here's the thing we really wanted to do. We wanted to have a consistent explanation of the documents every single time. And if you don't have this video that has it all written out, you can never be sure that the paralegal didn't wake up on the wrong side of the bed that morning or had a late night and really forgot to mention certain things in the estate plan that are probably crucial to mention. So this way you know exactly what was explained to the clients in this final signing ceremony. Collect your final payment and you go forward. So here's the document video review. Your family wealth plan video explains how the client's family wealth trust works. And by the way, we don't call it a living trust, we call it a family wealth trust. So again, this is part of distinguishing yourself from everyone in the world who's just got living trusts that they're, quote, selling. We want to have a unique process and unique names. It outlines the planning choices that they made. It reveals how the family will receive their inheritance. and it provides step-by-step guidance for heirs in managing the trust estate. So this video has a heavy burden. It carries a heavy load in your office, but you'll always know that since they had that video, everything has been explained properly. And it's not done in legalese. Client's personalized document video, we have it on this, you see this little, I can't remember what they call that. It's a digital thing that stores things. And so you have the documents actually on this, plugs into a laptop or any other kind of computer. And if they want to see their documents, that will be available for them. And it's encrypted, so there's not a problem with people changing it. So they have immediate access to their important papers and the custom video. And also, if you have the portal and you use the portal, then the documents can be stored there as well. So there's important conversations that go on in this final signing. You've had them watch the video, the paralegal comes in, answers any questions, and they get signed, witnessed, and notarized. Did you notice who is not a part of this process? The attorney is not a part of this process, because that is something that you've delegated to someone in the firm. Again, if you're just starting out and you're a sole practitioner, that may be something that you're doing with the recognition that you're going to get somebody to do this in the future. So you want to find out whether they have any life insurance policies. You want to find out if they have any long-term care policies. Have they made funeral arrangements? And you review a checklist for risk assessment and funding meeting and that planned delivery meeting that's going to happen after the final signing ceremony. And then post-signing, here's how the process works. The clients sign, the signature pages are scanned and photocopied. The original signature pages are conformed with the original documents. Copies of the signature pages are put in the portfolio. In many cases, people are using the portfolio to contain the final documents or the original documents. The scanned signature pages added to a PDF in the estate planning documents. The files are loaded on a flash drive. That was what I was trying to think of. It's loaded to a flash drive. And then the flash drive's encrypted, and the flash drive is ready for delivery at the risk assess, funding, and plan delivery meeting. So again, it's difficult to describe this, but when you see it in operation, you see how flawlessly and seamlessly it takes the person from a prospect into a client with signed documents and a complete funded portfolio. Step 5 is the family legacy plan, risk assessment, funding, and plan delivery. Now, what that means is that we're just trying not to squeeze the time frame of the formal signing ceremony and force the clients to be sitting inside of the conference room while you're copying things, whether you're putting things together, whether you're doing all of the work on the video. So we make another meeting where they come in to just talk about other areas of their financial life, the risk assessment, funding, and plan delivery, and then they get the portfolio and the video and they leave. Now, some members have freelanced a little on this, and they do the entire thing at the final signing ceremony and don't do the risk assessment, funding, and plan delivery. You'll find out which works best for you, and you'll talk about it with your practice building consultant or practice building coach. Risk assessment and funding, intention of the meeting, it's to coordinate the final funeral expenses, collect insurance policies for an audit, invitation to financial services seminar, if in fact you're engaged in financial services, funds all the assets into the estate plan, and delivers the legacy wealth planning portfolio. And you can see how all of that works there. Let's review, okay, the prospect to client process. This is a workflow. Marketing outreach, whether it's a webinar, a seminar, a guest speaking engagement, whatever it happens to be, that you actually reached out into the community, had people raise their hands, and then started on the process. They came to a seminar, they did a seminar follow-up, you had the office greeting, they come into the office, it's all scripted for you. You have the personal consultation, and Sandy went over the step-by-step of that. Then 2 weeks later, you have the asset inventory meeting. Then you have the formal signing ceremony, risk assessment funding and plan delivery meeting. And then there's an insurance audit meeting and a financial seminar that you can send them to if in fact you're involved in financial services. And if you want to talk to members who are involved in financial services and ask them what that's added to their practice, and we'll be sure to give you the names of anybody who is doing this kind of work. We have one member who makes more than $1 million a year just taking his estate planning clients and doing financial services for them. And that's $1 million every year because it's recurring revenue. So at the beginning of the year, you know, he gets like a $250,000 check. This is in addition to all of the legal work. Now, we don't want anybody getting excited and saying, I want to do that right away. There's a time for doing that once you get the Academy systems all in place. But it is a wonderful way to have recurring revenue in your estate planning practice. And then step 6, this is the family legacy lifetime communication and updates. And what we're attempting to do here is, remember earlier, yesterday, we talked about you want to not be in a transaction practice, you want to be in a relationship practice. Well, the only time you can have a relationship is, in fact, if you are having communication with people, and we call them touches. We want you to have at least 12 touches every year with every client, and they can be in a whole lot of different ways. Family seminar invitations, and we've got those seminars for you. Live or recorded webinars on various items. Law update letters, and we tell you all about that. Special client events. And what does that look like? Well, one member took all of his clients to a baseball game, and the baseball wasn't a Major League Baseball. It was their local baseball game, and the grandparents could bring all of their kids on the law firm, and on the screen it showed welcome to the law firm clients, and it was just a great event. People have done all kinds of things that involve clients getting together and having that touch. That law firm touch. Monthly online newsletters. I showed you Cheryl David's newsletter from yesterday. That goes out every month. It's a digital thing that you can track what articles people read. Social media, you can have all kinds of things on Instagram or Facebook or any place else. And again, having that kind of touch. And then a quarterly mailed newsletter we recommend. The Academy produces, writes it for you. All you have to do is send it out. But whatever way that you can think of to keep in contact with your clients, it will pay off really big as time goes on, because that's where you get your client referrals that are the most ideal sort of clients. We're moving down the home stretch now, folks, where we have 11 systems, and we're starting on system 9, continuing legal education system. Now, for those of you who are transitioning from litigation or bankruptcy or some other area of practice, this is going to be particularly important. But we don't want to overlook the fact that even if you've been practicing for a while, having some system or system available to you that keeps you on the cutting edge of effective legal strategies. This is what our continuing legal education system is all about. Now, it's not very long. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about it because you're going to all get to experience it at the summit, because we're going to have all of these educational speakers, and we can talk about what kind of things they're going to be talking about in advanced planning or regular estate planning. So here we've got this access to a wealth of legal education. As Sandy mentioned, I think yesterday, it's like having a senior partner down the hall from you where you can ask them any questions. The only thing that we ask is that when you ask a question of our legal education department, is that you don't put names of clients in, because we don't want to be sucked into the idea of practicing law in some state where we're not licensed. So you just do it in a hypothetical, and we will answer every question that you've got. So what we do in this department is up-to-date legal strategies. I mean, the laws are changing all of the time, and you will be up to date on all of them as they happen. The document language is created by the education department, and it's the document language will execute each of the strategies. So no longer do you have to worry about some faraway publisher, national publisher, who created some documents, and you never have a chance to talk to the people who actually created the documents. Our documents are created by our legal education department, and they know them inside and out. So any question you've got, they'll be able to answer. So these top experts are just a phone call away or a Zoom call away in estate planning, in tax law, in trust creation and administration, in elder law and all of its components, in probate and conservatorship, Medicaid planning, and entity planning. So we pretty much cover the waterfront of everything that you'll need to know in order to be a competent legal professional advising clients. And we do this with essentially two people. We have these nationally recognized experts. Now, Steve Hartnett is the director of the education department. He's got obviously a law degree. He's got an LLM in tax. He's certified in estate planning, specialist and VA accredited, and he is the director of education. And you'll be meeting through Zoom Steve many times this week during the fall summit. He's a certified estate planning, trust, and probate law specialist. And our members love Steve. Steve is the most patient person. I don't know how he handles it sometimes, some of the questions that he gets, and yet he's just as patient as can be. So you don't need to worry about asking questions that are pretty obvious to more veteran members, but he will walk you through all of that. So Steve is you're gonna be able to see Steve in his presentations this week. And in addition to Steve, we have Dennis Sandoval, who's an attorney, LLM in tax. He's a CELA, certified elder law advisor, and all of those other initials after his name. And he's the director emeritus. He was our director and then went to doing his own practice, but is still available on as needed basis. So he's certified taxation in trust, certified estate planning, trust and probate law specialist, certified elder law attorney, and accredited estate planner. And so this is the department that handles all of the educational needs of our members. Now, we want you to have continuing legal education in multiple formats. So there'll be in-person consultations, and that would be when we are back to doing live summits, and you can walk up to Steve and say, you know, this is the issue I've got, I need some help. You can do it by email, you can do it by conference call or Zoom call, or you can do it at training events. And some of the training events we have multiple day training events that especially are important for people who are just getting into estate planning. And so they will be able to come to these events where Steve will walk people through, assuming you have no knowledge at all, and take you from that beginner to mastery. There's a path that we've created in the Academy that will take you to mastery if you apply yourself. So we give multiple formats for you to be able to access the education department. Now, one of the things that's very important is that you have a lot of faith in the documents that the Academy is providing for you. What we've heard over the years is that other advisors, like financial advisors, insurance people, and banks, they hold up our documents, the Academy documents, as the finest they've ever seen. Can't tell you the number of messages that we've gotten, especially from bank trust companies, that say, I've never seen documents this comprehensive. And so if you call Steve, and he's going to know you by name, he's going to talk through all of the planning issues at any time that you want. And you'll probably have this front end loaded if you're coming into the Academy with very little knowledge of estate planning, but then you're going to move your knowledge up to another level, and you won't have to rely upon him as much as other times. So these documents are really, really important, and it's important that you understand the documents. And he's going to walk you through all of those. We've got videos of him doing it in the past, and I'm sure we'll have live presentations of him in the future. And to the right side of the slide, you see the thing I was talking about the presentation. You're taking something that is invisible, this estate plan, and you're making it now into a product. And so this isn't a bunch of papers that are stapled together and handed to the client. No, this is something that's presented in a beautiful binder that has a sleeve that goes with it. And we've heard that the clients display this prominently in their living rooms and other places in the house, so that they're proud of the fact that they've got this estate plan all looked after. So other resources that we've got for legal training, and this is what I was talking about, sometimes these multiple day events. One is the Core Foundation. So if you're just new to estate planning, you want to go to the Core Foundation, where Steve will talk about all the fundamental estate planning concepts. Core 1 then moves you to the next level, where there'll be taxation, including estate gift and generation skipping taxes, income taxation of trust, and other income tax issues. Core 2, IRA planning, ILITs and CRTs. Core 3, advanced planning. Again, remember, you've got this path to mastery. And then optional educational training at the summits, like we bring in guest speakers to talk about specific issues in estate planning who are national experts on it. So the resources to acquire and access all of this, we've got the frequently asked questions. We've got a clause bank. So a clause bank is that if you come across a particular issue and you've never drafted that before, we've got a clause bank that you can rely on. We've got member guides on various areas of the education, past educational materials and recordings. Remember, we've got 27 years worth of this material that's all available to you, and past classroom conference calls. We call these triple C's. And that is, they're done on a regular basis, and Steve gets on a Zoom call and he will pick a concept and he will discuss it in detail, and then members that are on the call can ask questions. Really lots and lots of resources for you on education. So if you're just going into estate planning, you don't need to worry that you're going to be left out there to try to figure it out yourself. And then the last thing we've got is Academy Fellow designation. People who were really experienced estate planners in the membership, they said, you know, we want to have a designation that's more than just being a member of the Academy. We want to have a Fellows designation. And, you know, fellow is in the medical profession. It's in a lot of places, to signify that somebody really has had a lot of experience and knowledge in estate planning. So it's pretty rigorous, the experience that you need and the knowledge requirements. So you must be an Academy member for at least 5 years, and you have to have 36 hours of annual CLE requirements. Summits and triple C's exceed the 36 hours per year. So let's stop on that for a second. The Academy has 36 hours of annual CLE requirements. And there's things like the document language committee that you can belong to. We've got an attorney listserv that if you have a question, you can ask other members. And currently there are 12 fellows in the membership. So you can see it's pretty difficult to have this kind of designation, only 12 in the membership. So if you want to find out who some of the fellows are, ask your PBC and we can arrange an introduction. But that's the educational resources. Again, not much that I need to talk about today because you're going to witness it and experience it for yourself over the next few days. And I don't think that we have any breakouts on that. You'll have lots of opportunity to see the education department in operation. Sandy, have you got anything you want to add?
Nope, I'll just continue on with number 10, and then I believe we have a breakout after number 10, and then we'll take it home with number 11. So on this, Robert, if you, well, actually, Sarah, can you give me back control of the slides?
Yeah, you should have control now once you click on the screen.
And I do. All right. So system number 10, thank you. System number 10, ancillary business systems. And this system really grew out of the fact that we recognize that you have the opportunity, if you want, to leverage client relationships to generate multiple sources of revenue. It goes back to us taking a look at the estate planning law practice and really viewing it through the lens of this is a business we have here. And as with any business, the most important part of the business is having clients, having customers for your business. And so we recognize that in this situation, there's more that we can do. So there are a lot of different opportunities. The most valued part of any business, it's really meeting the needs of clients. And once you have that trusted relationship, then the interesting thing is that clients want to have one-stop shopping. Once you have a trusted, once they have the trust in you, then they're ready for you to handle other things for them. And so then it just becomes a matter of, okay, what are the things and what is the right time for me to now offer other things to clients? And again, there's a sort of a continuum that occurs as you continue to build the business. For the time being, you're at the front end of this journey, figuring out, okay, do I want to go in this direction? Do I want to be an Academy member? Then, okay, now I've got to implement. What's it going to take to implement the foundation and the basics of all of the systems that we've got? And then what do I want to add to that? So it takes time, but at least you get to see what the opportunities are going down the road. Now, maintaining clients, other interesting points is that the more that you do for a client, the less likely they're ever going to leave the firm. So it's important that the more things that you can do, they're not going anywhere, particularly when you perform at a high level. This was mentioned yesterday, this idea that clients, and in fact, it's not just like people in general, they want a relief of responsibility. It's like, okay, I'll have other people do this for me, and I'm willing to pay for it. Giving clients the guidance they need in different areas. You're in a unique position as their trusted advisor to be able to do that. Different things that we've seen occur and that we've promoted. Obviously, we're doing the legal services, but then financial services, or we like to say financial coaching, because it really is a coaching relationship when you get into that business, whether it's insurance, investment advice, and money under management. We'll have a presentation where we talk about this more on Saturday. The partner that we use in this area is called Matson Money, and Mark Matson and Josh Crawford will talk a little bit about what they do and how they do it. There may be some members who also have something to say about that, who use Matson Money for that. And as Robert already mentioned, we have a number of members who have gone into the financial coaching, and the rewards financially are great. The rewards from the standpoint of taking care of your clients, so they're not being taken advantage of by anyone else. And in fact is that they're getting good advice. This is an opportunity for you as well. Something else called funeral trust planning. That's something that members have done. Some members are in the business of providing really tax returns, doing some minor accounting, but more importantly, doing tax returns for clients. Not for everybody, but some are CPAs and they have that expertise. Quite a few members are doing what we call the annual wealth maintenance program. This is a program, and we have all the materials, all the suggestions on what would be included in a program like this that you offer to clients, and some actually give away the first year of being in the wealth maintenance program as part of when they do an estate plan with your firm. They're automatically enrolled in this program. And this is an ongoing annual fee that is charged for providing some additional things, additional services to clients. And then there's also DocuBank, which you'll all be exposed to. DocuBank is a service where through an electronic system and a card, they have immediate access to certain documents in the event they're needed. Healthcare powers of attorney, those type documents are the ones that are most in demand. So there's just a couple of ideas, a couple of different things that you may want to consider. It's really looking at your practice and saying, okay, how can I create some recurring revenue, or as we like to say, annuitizing the actual practice. And there's a lot of different benefits. Obviously, you're providing more value to your clients. You're giving them more protection. You've already got the client, so now you're leveraging all of the marketing expense that you have already spent. It strengthens the bond with the clients. You're providing more to them. They're getting value. You're relieving them of more responsibility. They've got the one-stop shopping. And of course, on the other end of that, you've got multiple streams of revenue. Again, looking at it from the business standpoint, it's almost like a little mini conglomerate where the law firm is really the platform that launches each of the new divisions or services that if you decide to provide those. The clients are there, they trust you. There's a natural nexus to the legal services, and each one stands on its own in terms of profitability. You know, when we look at these things, we're always looking at certain principles that guide us on what do we think is a good idea. We look at, for the client, there's value, there's trust, there's convenience. So again, it comes back to the idea that we're always looking to provide more value, make it easy for the clients, one-stop shopping. For the firm, leverages the client acquisition cost, increases the lifetime value of the client, which you saw yesterday, and it also increases the pain of disconnect with clients. So very valuable.
System 11 ongoing mastermind system. But before I start on that, I hope you're all getting the reason that we require a boot camp before you join the academy, or at least that you attend a boot camp as part of your membership. Can you imagine trying to do all of this explanation in a brochure or from a salesperson or whatever? It would be absolutely impossible. So that's why we require that you attend something like this, so you get a complete kind of synoptic view of all of the services that the Academy offers, and you can see how it impacts your practice going forward. So first of all, we really appreciate the amount of time that you've spent with us, and put other things on hold while you attended and paid attention to all of the things to improve your practice. This is truly working on the business. So in System 11, we call this an ongoing mastermind system. And these are structures that you can participate in a community of like-minded attorneys. You've seen some of the members in your breakout sessions who are attending boot camp for a second or sometimes third time, so they can refresh their knowledge of all the Academy systems. But it's a community. And everybody knows everybody, and they're on the listserv talking with each other. So we wanted to create some structures that continue this whole idea of a community of like-minded attorneys. And this was the most surprising thing to Sandy and me when we created the Academy. We had no idea that one of the principal benefits of belonging to the Academy was the fact that you were going to be a part of a community, and that this community was organic, and they bonded with each other. And when they come to fall summits and spring summits and see each other elsewhere, it's like old home week. These are, in some cases, literally, this is not an exaggeration, the people they've met in the Academy are their best friends, literally their best friends. And they can't wait to see them at the Academy events. So this was a surprise to us. And we wanted to do everything we could to keep that kind of structure alive. So the idea of a mastermind, it comes from a book by Napoleon Hill that was written in the last century. And it's the coordination of knowledge and effort of two or more people who work toward a definite purpose in a spirit of harmony. Well, that's exactly what we've got here at the Academy. People working together toward a common goal and in a spirit of harmony. Now, no two minds ever come together without thereby creating a third, invisible, intangible force, which may be likened to a third mind. And this is what Napoleon Hill called the mastermind. And what we've wanted to do to support the community is provide as many structures as possible for members to get together and members to relate to each other and to the Academy. So here we've got a list of what this looks like. And we have the national summits. That's what you're a part of right now. We have one in the spring and one in the fall. We have an active member discussion forum. We have a listserv, and any issues that you want to bring up, it's not censored or reviewed by the Academy team. It's the chance for the members to talk among themselves. If they ask us a question, we of course chime in, but it's really for the members. And I mentioned earlier when we were talking about education that there's these classroom conference calls. This is, again, I don't know if it's a monthly basis or it's at least periodic that we have these. And where Steve will take an interesting legal topic and do a complete presentation on it. So that's also supporting the community. There's member-wide calls and webinars, not just from the education department, but from the member services department. As a matter of fact, one of the ones that we've just started recently that's just taken off like wildfire is the Friday marketing calls. So member services has every single Friday, a marketing discussion where members come into the meeting and they talk about what's working for them. They provide samples, and there's a complete kind of vigorous conversation about marketing and what's working and what's not. We have a young attorney group. We have a niche interest meeting. So whatever kind of niche you're wanting to focus on, there's meetings on those. Member services also has focus group calls where they'll take a particular issue and have members discuss that. Peak performers. Let me take a moment to talk about that, because one of the things that Sandy and I noticed when we created the Academy was that there were members who implemented all of the Academy systems, were very successful, but they wanted something more. They wanted something to work on mindset. They wanted something to work on advanced strategies like marketing strategies and practice management strategies. So we created this thing called the Peak Performer Group. And there's a first-year peak performers, and then there's a mastery peak performers. And this is an additional fee, and you work directly with Sandy and me. And it's a 365-day program. It's not a one-time sort of get all excited and then have all of it be forgotten. It is an actual program where people report on a daily basis to other people in the peak group. They list their 3 wins for the day. They bring up topics that they need to talk about. And then we have, in the first year, we have 3 2-day live, well, lately we had them in Zoom, but when the world returns to normal, we'll have these 3 2-day sessions where people actually get together and we create content for those meetings. And we have hot seats where people get on and they discuss issues that are happening in their firm. And then the other people in the Peak Performer Group really contribute to solving those issues. It has existed for, I think we're in 10th or 11th year on Peak Performers, and people just keep coming back year after year after year. Now in the Mastery Group, we don't have 3 2-day meetings, we just have 2 2-day meetings, and then we have like check-in meetings throughout the year. So I wanted to explain that to you, and we don't want anybody that's thinking about joining the Academy to join Peak Performers right away. This is something that happens once you get most of the Academy systems well executed in your firm. We have a board of governors, and the board of governors are picked by Sandy and me and the team, and we ask the board of governors to provide support for us in making big decisions. So when a decision comes in, we want to get the feeling of the board of governors. So that's another structure that we have that keeps this community alive. We have the Women Attorney Group, which has grown substantially since we first started, and to talk about issues that are most relevant to women attorneys. And we have member panels, and there'll be a member panel that's happening on, I don't know what day it is, but it is, it's a roundtable discussion where we will be talking about members who have actually bought a practice and how that worked, what the steps were that they took. Also, Sandy mentioned that database financial database, which is a panel of people that take their names out of anonymity and say, this is, column number 28, that's me. And then all of their numbers are there and people can ask them questions about it. Fabulous sort of panel discussions that we have every year. There's a document language committee. Some people are just so into the documents that they want to recommend language that can be in the documents, and they meet with Steve and they talk about recommended document language, various provisions that they can do. So that's a document language committee. The Academy Fellows, I just talked about that. And the last one really probably is, in my mind, the most important one. And this is the Point Peeps program. It sounds kind of trendy to have that name, but let me tell you what it is. It's all of the team members of all of the firms in the Academy. And it's voluntary. It has no cost associated with it. And the Point Peeps share with each other exactly what's working in their firm and suggestions as to new things that they're trying. And I'm on the email list for the Point Peeps, and I've got to tell you the unbelievably creative ideas that come out of the Point Peeps on a regular basis. So if you join the Academy, and whether you're the attorney or the staff person, you definitely want to join the Point Peeps program because the benefits are just so extraordinary. But that's the kind of ecosystem that we wanted to create to support this kind of mastermind or this collegiality that the Academy created. And the value of the community, and this is kind of reiterating what I just said, they consider friendship, collegiality, and wisdom of other Academy members the most valuable part of membership. Who knew that all of this content and all of these programs that we created would, in some cases, pale in value with the fact that there's this community of like-minded attorneys. Now, you'll get to experience exactly what they mean. You'll do it virtually rather than in person. In person is actually better because you get to do real hugs rather than virtual hugs. But this is something that the community really is a strong part of the Academy membership benefits. So you've sat here for 2 days and we've been just talking and talking and talking. You've gone into breakout sessions and you got a kind of a sense of what this thing called the Academy is and what these 11 essential systems are. And so now you're in this boot camp because you're thinking of joining the Academy. And what we want to ask right now is this the right time for you? And if it's not the right time, that's perfectly okay. But if it is the right time for you, then you'll talk to Jennifer and the recruiting department, and you'll let them know. You have to ask yourself the following questions. What do you want your future to look like? You remember we talked yesterday about this idea of a default future, that everyone has a default future, every business has a default future, every organization has a default future, and that is a future that's going to happen unless some intervention comes in to change the course of that default future. And the default future oftentimes is not all that bad, but it is not what you're capable of. It is not a future that you have a lot of control over. And so what we wanted to do is have you create a future rather than the default future, relying upon the kind of flow of history that's going to move you along, that you are going to take action and create a future that you want. And the question is, what action will you take to make that happen? You can create your future by choice and not by chance, as in the default future. So you've got to ask yourself that question. What do you want your future to look like? I hope that you've been able to see over the last couple of days that there's so many more possibilities than maybe you imagined for your practice and hence for your life. What we found over 27 years of doing the Academy and then many more years of practicing law, meeting lots and lots of attorneys, and it's really, really sad. And the lawyer's lot is in many cases hidden and people don't realize. Everyone thinks lawyers make a lot of money and, you know, take long vacations and all of that. But what we've found is that many attorneys are lonely. They have no one to talk to. Everyone in their town is kind of a competitor, so they don't want to share anything with them. They're often underpaid. When you look at the statistics of what lawyers actually get paid, there's like the two ends of the spectrum. There's those firms, the lawyers working at multinational firms that are making huge amounts of money. But when you get down to the regular everyday attorneys, often not making the kind of money they need to or should do because of the value they provide. They'd have little or no time off. Can't tell you the number of times that Sandy and I have heard from prospective members who say, you know, I haven't taken a real vacation in years. I can't leave because everything will fall apart. So that means it's also hard to retire. I guess you just kind of face down on your desk at some point in your life. Hard to retire, and you don't really have something that you can transfer to someone else. And as I mentioned before, you're afraid to share because all of the people in your community are essentially your competitors. So you hold things close to the vest, which contributes to the loneliness. It's all transaction based. You know, you get a client, you do the work, and then you put it away and you go to the next client if you're lucky, rather than having a relationship, long-term relationship with the people that you're meeting with. Much more satisfying to have that relationship business rather than a transactional one. Oftentimes we find that attorneys are slow on technology. They're using old, outdated technology, or they haven't upgraded things for their team so that they can be more productive. They've got very few systems. You know, we showed all of these systems that are available to you, but when we look in individual firms, there's really very few systems, and it goes out the door when the first person leaves the firm for whatever reason. That system goes with them, and a new one is created by the person who replaces them. So, as we talked about very early yesterday, you need to have a business, not just a job. And unfortunately, for most attorneys that we've talked to, they've got not a business, but they've got a job. However well paying, it's a job that really ties them to the practice for every single day, every night, and often on weekends with very little vacation. So that's kind of depressing when we look at what the lawyer's lot is, as we've seen it over the years. But you know, you came here and we're here to help. And we want to make sure that all of this is available to you if now is the right time. So what we consider is that we're in a coaching relationship with you. And what we consider a great coaching relationship is we first of all discover what your goals and dreams are, what kind of a practice you want to create. Now, not everybody wants to create $1 million or a $2 million practice. And if that's not your goal, then what is your goal? What kind of a practice? We got one member who wanted to create a lifestyle business. Unfortunately, she's so good at what she does is that it's kind of proceeded beyond that, and she's making more money than she ever had. But that was her original goal. So we created the plan to create that. And once we discover what your goal is, the first thing that happens whenever you set out a goal is the first thought is you haven't reached your goal. So you're in the gap. You're in the gap. I'm here, I want to be over here, but I'm not, so I'm in the gap. So we want to clearly identify what the gap is for you so that you can move beyond it onto your goal. And to do that, we want to give you proven and tested strategies. And we've talked about a lot of them today. We want to have you support with massive action. So first of all, you create your goal, you find out what the gap is, we give you the strategies, and you can't just have the strategies, you want to have massive action to make it happen. And then in addition to that, assemble committed colleagues on the same journey and adventure that you are. That's what a great coaching relationship looks like for us. So we've done a lot of talking, showed you a lot of things, and now it's essentially your turn. And the question is, are you ready to get serious about your dreams, about what kind of creative future you want? And do you believe that we are the guys, and this is the organization that will help you make it happen? And if that's the case, if you're ready to get serious and you think that we can help you, then your decision is an easy one. And by the same token, if this isn't the right time, or you don't think that we can deliver, then that decision is also an easy one, isn't it? Because this is not for you. It's not the right time. It's not for you. So what we want to do is, first of all, thank each and every one of you for taking the time to listen to all of the things we wanted to share. Spending the focused time and energy here makes a whole lot of difference. And speaking for Sandy and myself, regardless of the decision that you make, whether you want to join or now's not the right time, it's been an honor and a privilege to spend time with you and share our information with you. And with that, I think we want to wind up the boot camp and open it up for you for any questions that you want to ask of Jennifer or Sandy or me or any of the team.
And also want to acknowledge the members and their team that showed up for the boot camp to reboot and hear everything again. And it's always nice to see familiar faces in the crowd.